Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. I thought it would be a simple situation. I felt like I was going to tell my wife that I knew she was cheating on me, then I'd divorce her, and then we'd all go our merry ways for the rest of our lives. I don't consider myself to be stupid for not seeing the way things turned out, because nobody ever would have. I'm Peter. I'm 42 years old and my wife, Brooklyn, is 40. We've been married for 13 years now. We have 2 children, both under 10, and I think we've had the normal amounts of friction and issues for a marriage that's lasted that long. We don't do drugs. Nobody has ever been psychologically evaluated for one thing or another. And even though we aren't rich, we are generally happy with where we are in life. I have to be honest, leading up to all this, I don't know if I wasn't paying enough attention, but I didn't notice anything different about my wife. I wouldn't have assumed that she was cheating because everything seemed to be the same. She didn't act distant. She didn't suddenly change her appearance. There weren't any late nights at the office or mysterious credit card charges. Maybe I wasn't being as attentive as I should have been because I'm running a business and doing my best to make sure the family is as comfortable as possible. I work long hours. I bring a lot of it home with me too. Sometimes, I guess, I assumed that just being there physically was enough. Ultimately, I discovered that Brooklyn was cheating on me. And one thing that's really annoying me, more than anything, is how I had absolutely no idea about it. Not even a hunch. No gut feeling. She slipped up pretty foolishly, and that was the only reason I knew what was going on. I found out on a day when Brooklyn said that an old friend was in town and that she wanted to see her before she left since she hadn't seen her since college. Do you remember Ashley? From my dorm, she asked casually while we were clearing the dinner table. Not really, I said. Was she the one with the huge scarf collection or the one who played the cello? Brooklyn laughed. Neither. Ashley was the one who used to be pre-law and then dropped everything to go teach English in Japan. Oh, vaguely, I replied. She's just in town for a day, Brooklyn said. She texted me out of nowhere and said she's flying out tomorrow morning. I'd like to catch up if that's okay. Of course it is, I said. I can take care of the kids. No problem. She smiled and leaned over to kiss my cheek. Thank you, babe. I'll be back before midnight. That all sounded perfectly reasonable. So, I helped the kids with their homework, got them ready for bed, read a story, and tucked them in. I ended up falling asleep on the couch while watching some documentary. I remember waking up groggy, the TV still on. I looked at the clock. It was 12:21 a.m. I rubbed my eyes, sat up, and realized Brooklyn still wasn't home. I picked up my phone and texted her. Hey, everything okay? You said you'd be back by midnight. I stared at the screen for a minute. The message went through. No read receipt. And then I waited. But I didn't get a response. It was getting close to 1 a.m., but I didn't want to sit out on the porch waiting for her since it was cold as hell outside. So instead, I settled into the bay window we had downstairs. It had these thick cushions and overlooked the street, quiet, dimly lit, barely any movement at that hour. I sat there with my arms folded, phone in hand, watching the empty road outside. It was so late there was almost no traffic, which is why I perked up when I finally heard a car engine in the distance. I leaned forward and peeked out between the curtains. The car drove past the house. Nothing. About 2 minutes later, I heard the engine again, softer this time, then louder, then a slow roll to a stop. I pushed the curtain open just enough to get a clear look without being obvious. It was a truck, slightly lifted, big tires, the kind of vehicle that screams testosterone overload. It idled for a second across the street before pulling away, and that's when I saw her. Brooklyn stepped out from the shadows, her heels in her hand, walking barefoot up to the front door like she was sneaking back into her parents' house after curfew. When she walked in and shut the door behind her, I said quietly, "Hey." She nearly jumped out of her skin. "Jesus, Peter, you scared me," she said, holding a hand to her chest. I stood from the bay window and looked at her. "What took you so long?" She blinked a few times, then smiled like she was trying to soften the mood. "Oh, we just got caught up talking. You know, reminiscing and stuff." Ashley's hilarious. I hadn't laughed that hard in forever. I didn't even realize how late it had gotten. "I'm sorry." She sounded genuine. At least, she tried to. I wanted to believe her. Maybe I even did for a second. I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. "Who dropped you off?" She hesitated. Just a beat, but long enough for me to notice. Her eyes flicked toward the bay window, and I could practically see her doing the math in her head. Did he see the car? Could he have seen the driver? "It was an Uber," she said. I tilted my head. "A lifted truck?" "That was an Uber." She stood frozen for a moment. I shook my head. "Come on, Brooklyn. That doesn't even make sense. No Uber I've ever seen shows up in something like that." She doubled down. "Well, it was. Maybe the guy just drives that kind of truck." I stepped forward. "Let me see the app. Show me the ride history." She looked away. No, I'm not handing you my phone. We both knew what that meant. She'd been caught. She could have tried to keep lying, but what was the point? She sighed, rubbed her forehead, and finally said, okay. It wasn't an Uber. It was some guy we met at the bar. Ashley and I were talking to him, and he offered to drop me off. That's all. I didn't mean anything by it. I just didn't want to deal with this. She gestured toward me like I was overreacting. You lied, I said flatly. That already makes it something. She shook her head. I knew you'd flip out. That's why I didn't tell you the truth. I thought saying Uber would just end the conversation. I was trying to avoid a fight. Well, congratulations, I said, arms crossed. Now we're fighting, and on top of that, a stranger knows where we live. I stared at her. You let some random guy drive you home, Brooklyn. Some guy you just met. And now that same random guy knows where we live. We have 2 young children. 2 little ones asleep upstairs in their pajamas, safe and innocent in their rooms. And she thought it made sense to get a ride home from a complete stranger? How did that make any sense to her? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She kept trying to defend herself, saying things like, it was just a ride, or you're blowing this out of proportion. But her excuses were just pissing me off. Every word out of her mouth made it worse. And that was the moment, the exact moment, where something shifted in me, where I had the first real thought that maybe something entirely different happened that night, that this wasn't just a casual lapse in judgment, that maybe she was lying about all of it. So, in my anger, I looked her straight in the eyes and said, what was your friend's name? She blinked like she didn't understand the question. The one you said you went to see. Your college friend. What was her name? That hit a nerve. Her body language changed. Tense. Arms crossed. Defensive. Oh, so now I'm lying about having a friend? She snapped. I'm asking you a simple question, Brooklyn. You mentioned her by name before. What was it, Ashley? Or was that just part of the story too? She glared at me. You're unbelievable. You always do this. You get in your head and then act like your version of things is the only truth. I'm asking you her name. Just say her name. She stormed past me into the kitchen, muttering under her breath. I followed. Say her name. Stop interrogating me, Peter, she yelled. Our voices were getting loud. Too loud. I could hear one of the kids stir in the hallway above, and that's when I stopped. I backed off. Not because I believed her. Not because I let it go. But because I didn't want the kids waking up to the sound of their parents fighting like maniacs in the middle of the night. And maybe I didn't want the neighbors hearing it either. So I dropped it. Out loud, at least. But inside, the seed had been planted. The kind that burrows deep and refuses to let go. She couldn't give me the name of the friend. That said everything. I slept on the couch that night. Just laid there, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece everything together. Trying to remember if I'd missed any signs before. But that was the turning point. I didn't say it, but I knew then I was going to get to the bottom of this. The next morning was painfully awkward. She made coffee. I didn't drink it. We passed each other like co-workers after an office argument. Polite, short, no eye contact. I couldn't help myself. I looked at her and asked, are you ready to tell the truth yet? She stared at me, like she couldn't believe I was still on this. God, Peter, she said with this exasperated tone. You act like you're always right. Like you're better than everyone else. That stung. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Cold. Sharp. She looked me dead in the eyes. I told you the truth. Whether you like it or not, that's your problem. I didn't believe her for a second. So I asked again, what's the name of the friend you were with? Nothing. Not a word. She just kept unloading all this attitude, but she never once gave me a name. That's when I knew, really knew, that I was going to have to snoop. I've done it before. She never found out. That last time, it was just her ex messaging her. She hadn't mentioned it, which annoyed me. But I checked her phone and saw that she kept it distant, barely responded, and eventually just stopped engaging altogether. That gave me some peace back then. It made me trust her even more, honestly. It's part of the reason this whole thing hit me so hard. I didn't think she was that kind of person. But now, after everything, the truck, the lies, the name she couldn't give me, I knew I had no choice. So, on Sunday night, after she went to bed and the house was dark and quiet, I crept back into the bedroom. She was fast asleep, breathing softly, one hand resting on the blanket. I moved carefully, grabbed her phone off the nightstand, and slipped out of the room. And then I started digging. It didn't take me long at all. As soon as I opened her messages, right there near the top of the list was a conversation with someone named Xander. No last name. Just Xander. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. The first thing I saw was pure filth, dirty talk that left no room for misinterpretation. I didn't have to scroll far to see one of her pictures, one she had clearly taken just for him. She was in our bathroom, her hand in her hair, her shirt lifted. A few messages up, he had sent something back. I wish I hadn't seen it. But I did. It was like being hit in the chest with a hammer. I kept scrolling. I needed to know when this had started, needed to see it in black and white. Just a bit further up, and there it was. Earlier that same day, he had messaged her confirming their plans for the night. There was no Ashley, no college friend, no night of reminiscing. It was all a lie. She'd left our house, left me with our kids, and gone out with some guy named Xander. I just sat there for a while, staring at the phone. I had wanted so badly to be wrong, or at the very least, to be unsure. I thought that maybe I was being paranoid, maybe overreacting. But the moment the truth was right there in front of me, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt sick. It's not like I felt bad for her, not at all. What I felt was the weight of the mess my life was about to become. The life I thought I'd built, stable, intact, safe, was gone. 13 years of marriage. Nearly 20 years of knowing her. Gone. And the worst part? This probably wasn't the first time. Just the first time she'd gotten sloppy enough for me to find out. We have 2 kids. They're going to be dragged through this, and there's no way to shield them completely. They'll have to hear the explanations, see the tension, watch the house change. And I'm going to be single again. At 42. It's a depressing, lonely thought, especially when I thought I had it all figured out. But the dominant emotion in that moment wasn't anger. That came later. No, in that moment, it was sadness. Deep, heavy sadness. It felt like I was grieving. Not just for the marriage, but for the version of my life I thought was real. I made sure to document everything, screenshots, message backups, everything I might need for what was coming. Then I slipped her phone back onto the nightstand exactly how I found it and walked out of the room. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had one goal in mind, confront her. But not while the kids were around. That was non-negotiable. So once they were out of the house, bags packed for the weekend, dropped off at her sister's, I told her I needed to talk. She was halfway through making coffee, still in her robe. Brooklyn, I said flatly, we need to talk. She looked at me cautiously. Okay, what about? I didn't waste a second. I cut straight to it. I know you're cheating on me. She blinked like she didn't understand the words. I kept going. That whole performance the other night, the made-up college friend, the lifted truck, it was all suspicious enough. But now I know. I have proof. I watched the color drain from her face. I know you were lying to me. I didn't want to present all my cards at once. I wanted to see how she was going to defend herself, to see what kind of story she'd try to spin now that the walls were closing in. She laughed, actually laughed, and said, you don't have proof of anything. I haven't been lying. Calm as I could, I looked her dead in the eye and said, I know about Xander. That shut her up. There was this beat of silence, just long enough to confirm everything I already knew. Her face didn't twitch. She didn't ask who that was. She didn't look confused. She just stopped. And then, after a second, she said, you went through my phone? I didn't even answer her. I just stood there, arms crossed, letting that weak little deflection hang in the air. She's smart. Smarter than that, usually. But right then, she was scrambling, reaching for anything that could make me the bad guy, or at least less right. When I didn't respond, she got louder. You pushed me to it. You did this. You've been cold and neglectful for months, Peter. I felt like I didn't even exist to you anymore. Her voice cracked, like she wanted to cry but couldn't quite pull it off. I needed love. Affection. You weren't giving me any of that. What was I supposed to do? She continued. You act like you're some perfect husband, but you checked out on me a long time ago. I just stared at her, stunned, not by the accusation, but by how fast she'd tried to rewrite history. And if this family falls apart, that's on you, she said, her voice trembling. If we split up, our kids are going to grow up hating you. You think they won't see who the selfish one is? That's when I realized how far gone she really was. She was out of her mind. Because I know what kind of husband I've been. I'm not the guy from a Nicholas Sparks movie, sure, but I've been there. I've worked hard. I've supported her. I've made time for her, made time for the kids. I came home, I showed up, and I did the damn work. So I said, nothing I did pushed you to this. Nothing. You didn't cheat because I stopped loving you. You cheated because of you. Your choices. Your attitude. Your selfishness. That's it. That's the whole list. She opened her mouth like she had more to say, but I kept going. I'm done, Brooklyn. There's no coming back from this. You're not dodging the divorce. Not this time. And then, in a moment of heat, I said something I probably shouldn't have. And I'll make sure the kids stay with me. That hit her like a slap. Her whole expression changed in a blink. Gone was the defensive posture, the fake sadness, the guilt tripping. She looked frenzied. That's the best word I've got for it. Her eyes? Wild. Like something unhinged had just snapped loose. She stepped toward me, jaw clenched, and said, low and deliberate, if you try to keep my kids from me, I swear to God I'll choke you in your sleep. I froze. Not because I thought she meant it, at least not at first, but because it was such a massive escalation. I had never seen her like that before. I stood there, stunned, and like an idiot, I chuckled under my breath and shook my head like it meant nothing. Then I said it. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, I won't let my children stick around a pathetic excuse of a mother. That was the final match tossed into the gasoline. She lunged at me. No hesitation, no warning. Just raw, sudden rage. I moved out of the way fast, thank God. She missed me entirely and stumbled to the floor. She didn't even try to get up right away. She just sat there, practically shaking, and started hurling every curse and insult she could think of. You're a piece of shit, Peter, she screamed. You think you're some saint? You're nothing. Nothing. Her face twisted with anger like I'd never seen. Xander is twice the man you'll ever be. Do you hear me? At least he made me feel something. You just drained everything out of the room. She kept going, but I'd stopped listening. I had to walk away. Not just to cool off, not just to breathe, but because I was genuinely worried she was losing her mind. This wasn't anger anymore. This was something else. I grabbed my coat, walked out the door, and just started walking. No destination. I didn't care where I ended up. I just knew I couldn't stay in that house with her in that state. 2 hours. That's how long I was gone. I walked until my legs felt heavy and the cold air had numbed the tightness in my chest. When I came back, the house was quiet. She was on the couch, watching something on TV like nothing had happened. Calm. Settled. It was eerie. I wanted to find another place to stay, honestly. But I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she would never let me take the kids with me. And I wasn't about to leave them alone with her, not after what I'd just seen. So I stayed. But from that point on, I watched her constantly. Every move. Every word. I wasn't scared of her, but I didn't trust her either. The next morning, I got the kids ready and dropped them off at school. I went into work, trying to keep my head down and just focus. She stayed home. That was fine with me. I was relieved to have everyone else out of the house and away from her for the day. By that point, I'd already called a friend of mine and gotten a referral for a divorce lawyer. I had an appointment scheduled for the next day, and it couldn't come fast enough. I needed this marriage over. I needed us legally separated. I needed a plan, because she was clearly unpredictable. Toward the end of the workday, one of my coworkers stuck his head into my office. Hey, Peter, he said, a little hesitant. You might want to come outside. I asked what was going on, but he didn't answer. Just gave me a look. So I followed him out. And there it was. My truck. Windshield shattered. The driver's side door had a massive gash carved into it. And across it, in big, shaky letters, was the word a-hole. There were other scratches too. Random, jagged ones all over the left side. My jaw tightened. My hands clenched at my sides. The lot where we park isn't visible from the office, and nobody saw who did it. But I didn't need a witness. I knew who did it. I pulled out my phone and called her. No answer. Called again. Nothing. So I got in the same damn truck, glass crunching under my shoes, and drove straight home. When I walked in, she was in the kitchen, humming to herself, acting like everything was perfectly normal. Like she hadn't just committed felony-level vandalism. And I won't lie, I lost myself entirely. The kids were already home by the time I got back, but honestly, my mind didn't even register that. All I could see was my wrecked truck, her smug face, and the hell she was dragging us all through. I just lost it. Everything I'd been holding back came out at once. Days of tension, lies, betrayal, and now destruction of my property. And the worst part? She stood there laughing. Laughing. Like it was all some kind of joke. Like my rage was entertainment for her. That laughter was gasoline on the fire. I don't even remember what I said. I just remember pacing, yelling, pointing, my voice shaking more from disbelief than rage. And her grinning like she was winning. Then something happened inside me. Some flicker of fear, like a warning bell going off. I looked around. The kids were here. And suddenly, I realized that if I didn't leave, if I didn't physically get myself out of that house, something irreversible could happen. Not because I'd hurt her, because I never would, but because I couldn't trust her anymore. So I stormed out, slammed the door behind me, and just walked. I don't even remember where I went. Down the block, maybe to the park. I just needed to be gone long enough to cool off. I stayed out for about an hour, breathing deep, trying to reset, reminding myself who I was, who I wasn't. When I finally made my way back home, I was tired, drained, just wanted to put the kids to bed and try to think clearly for once. But when I turned onto the street, I saw them, 2 police cruisers parked right in front of the house. My heart immediately dropped. I walked toward the house, and before I could even get to the driveway, one of the officers stepped forward. You Peter Langley? Yeah, I said slowly. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. You're being detained for investigation. That's when everything inside me froze. My blood ran cold, and all I could think was, oh God, what did she do? What happened to the kids? Was this her plan all along? Did she hurt them, and now she was trying to pin it on me? I went numb. Then I saw her. She walked out onto the porch, flanked by one of the officers, and that's when it all clicked. She had a welt on the side of her face, a bruise on her forehead, and that's when I realized she was accusing me. I had somehow assaulted her. My mind couldn't even process it. It was like reality fractured into pieces right there in front of our neighbors, in front of my own kids, standing on the porch, eyes wide, trying to understand why their dad was being handcuffed like a criminal. That moment, that might have been the worst experience of my life. Worse than finding out she was cheating. Worse than the vandalism. Watching my children see me like that. I'll fast forward through the mess. After the preliminary investigation, they let me go. Turns out her story didn't even line up. The first version she gave the officer didn't match the one she eventually settled on. In both, she claimed I slapped her and then threw her head against the floor, supposedly because I was furious over the vandalism. But even the officers could tell something was off. And then they spoke to my oldest. He told them he'd been peeking from upstairs during the fight. He said he saw me yelling, saw me leave, and as far as he could tell, I never touched her. He's only 9, but the way he told them, the way he described what he saw and what he didn't see, he's incredibly smart. And I know that showed when talking to the police. It was at that moment, being released after those surreal, humiliating hours in custody, that I knew I couldn't be around her anymore. Whatever that woman had become, I couldn't recognize it, and I sure as hell couldn't reason with it. I'm going to deal with the legal mess. I know that. The divorce, the custody hearings, all of it. But not right now. Not while the adrenaline is still burning in my chest every time I think of her face. Not while my kids' wide eyes on that porch still haunt me. I've been out of the house for 2 days now, crashing on a friend's couch. It's quiet here, too quiet. I barely sleep. I just keep replaying everything, trying to figure out how this happened. And I still can't decide. Did she hit herself? Or did she actually get someone else to do it for her? Either answer is terrifying. That's the kind of person I married. That's the mother of my children. But yeah, I can't deal with her right now. I made the hard call. I let the kids stay with her. Not because I think it's the right thing, not because I think she's stable, but because I knew if I tried to take them right now, she'd pull another stunt, and next time, maybe the cops wouldn't be so understanding. She felt that threatened by me just saying I'd pursue custody, that she decided to frame me for domestic assault. That's not someone who's worried about her kids. That's someone who's obsessed with control. She's going to be served tomorrow. I've got the papers ready. The lawyer is on it. All I want now is for this to be over. No revenge. No grand confrontation. I just want to be okay, mentally, physically. And more than anything, I don't want to have to live in fear of a crazy ex-wife or my children's safety. The divorce went through. Finally, it's over. I've got 70% custody of the kids, and I got to keep the house. That's something. Actually, it's everything. Being able to give my kids stability after all that chaos. It means more than I can explain. Yeah, I'm paying alimony. That part stings. I tried to fight it, especially with the evidence of her cheating and the whole episode of her completely unhinged behavior. But it didn't go my way. Despite everything she put me through, I never set out to destroy her. That was never my mission. But she managed to do a pretty damn good job of that herself. See, close to the parking lot near my business, one of the other buildings has a security camera that faces a wide angle. Almost like a lucky break. It caught everything. You can see her car pull up. Then you see her, clear as day, getting out and walking right up to my truck. Now, the actual vandalism? The angle's not great. If you only had that portion, you might not be able to say definitively that it was her. But because you can see the full sequence, from her exiting the car, approaching mine, and walking back, it was all we needed. That changed things. Besides finalizing the divorce, I went legal in other ways. I sued her. False arrest. Damage to property. Now, I couldn't fully prove she fabricated the domestic assault claim. Her story had holes, sure, but it wasn't enough to cross the criminal line in court. Still, I was able to get a protective order based on the vandalism. The court granted it, with the exception of child pickup and drop-offs, which had to be done at a public, neutral location. Fair enough. She had to pay for the damages to the truck, which honestly weren't outrageous. A new windshield, a full respray on the driver's side. But the kicker? The punitive damages. That was where the numbers added up. Obviously, she didn't have the cash to drop all at once, but the court made her pay a significant chunk up front and set her on a payment plan for the rest. That probably hurt more than anything else, being held financially accountable for her own recklessness. I'm still pushing to see if the police will take it further. Maybe pick up charges for misuse of 911 or criminal mischief. It's a long shot, I know, it's been a while. But with her record now tainted by a recent charge of disorderly intoxication, I'm thinking it might tip the scales. Oh, and the best part? She had the audacity to call me from jail. Asked if I'd bail her out. I didn't even respond. Let her sit. So yeah, that's the end of it. That's the story of how my ex-wife went full-blown psycho on me. Even though she was the one cheating, the one lying, the one who tore our family apart. She did everything she could to dodge accountability, and it didn't end well for her. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.